Hi, I'm Samantha Shea. I'm the curator and host of Generation Women for Litquake. We are at the amazing Club Verdi right now, about to do our show. We're doing a multi-generational storytelling on stage featuring women in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, all telling a true story from their lives based on the theme plot twists. Thank you to everyone who came, and we'll see you next year.
Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome to Litquake. This is the 25th anniversary of Litquake. My name is Nora and I'm Litquake's executive director. This year we have brought you, because tonight is the last official night of Litquake, 2.5 weeks of programming. We started back on October 10th. We wrap up tomorrow with Lit Crawl, which takes over the mission with 63 separate events. I think many of you are involved in some capacity, with we've hosted more than 500 authors over the space of this festival, and I think there's like 300 just tomorrow night. Tonight, of course, we're honored to present Generation Women under the theme of plot twists. I'm really pleased to be co-presenting this event with Generation Women. When I first started with Litquake a little over a year ago, I asked a lot of people what their favorite Litquake events have been, and so many people told me that the last time we hosted Generation Women was their favorite Litquake event they'd ever been to. So really glad to bring them back again this year. A few quick orders of business from me before we get started. Litquake is a small nonprofit. Thank you so much for purchasing a ticket to tonight's event and for your support of the Litquake organization. However, ticket sales only cover a very small percentage of the cost of putting on a festival like this. So please consider dropping us a few dollars in good old American cash, Venmo, PayPal, on our website at litquake.org, whatever you have available to you. And tonight, you are in luck because we brought all of our great new Litquake merch, and I will be happy to thank you with a brand new Litquake tote bag for a $50 donation, or a coffee mug for a $25 donation, or a glitter sticker or a clip-on reading light for a donation of any amount. And again, tonight is the last night of the festival, so get them while you can. Hopefully you found a survey on your seat tonight. Please fill it out and return it to the table in the back of the room, either during intermission or at the end of the night. They are completely anonymous, and they do help us out immensely with getting funding in the form of grants and donations. Tonight's authors' books are for sale, again in the back of the room, thanks to Books, Inc. That's right. And authors will be signing at the end of the show, but don't wait until then to buy books. You could buy those during intermission as well. I want to thank this year's major sponsors. Those include California Humanities, Craig Newmark Philanthropies, the Hawthornden Foundation, the Margaret and William R. Hearst Foundation, Minor Anderson Foundation, National Endowment for the Arts, and San Francisco Grants for the Arts. We also have media sponsors. They include San Francisco Chronicle, KALW, KQED, KEXP, the Bay Area Reporter, SF Arts, Johnny Funsheep, 7x7, and Publishers Weekly. And last but not least, thank you so much to the Verdi Club for hosting us tonight. Definitely one of our favorite venues to host Litquake events. And now I'd like to introduce our MC for the evening. Samantha Shea's writing has appeared in The Sun, 17, the Gettysburg Review, Glimmer Train, Travel and Leisure, the New York Times, and many other publications. Her collection of stories, My Mother's Boyfriends, plural, is coming out in January 2025, and pre-orders are actually available at the back of the room tonight as well. So please join me in welcoming Samantha Shea and the rest of the Generation Women teams.
Okay, I gotta get all prepare for my old eyes. There we go. Thank you so much for coming. I love Generation Women so much. Just for my own curiosity, how many of you were here when we did Generation Women like 2 years ago, I think it was, for Litquake? Raise your hands, I can't. Okay, so good, there's tons of new people, a few old ones. I'm thrilled that you're here. Generation Women was started by a writer named Georgia Clark in New York, and there it happens monthly at Joe's Pub. I happened to go with a friend years ago and was just blown away by the stories I heard, by the format, and just by the whole idea of generational diversity, and that what an important aspect of a diversity that is. And I just love the show so much, and I went back again, and I just encourage you, if you're ever in New York and you happen to coincide with a Generation Women performance, to go see it, because they're amazing. I wanted to bring it to San Francisco, and the pandemic happened and all the stuff, but Litquake made it happen, and so here we are, and I'm really, really grateful to Litquake. I want to thank Litquake founders, Jane Gonnell and Jack Bulwar, and the current executive director, Nora Peel, for giving us such a fabulous venue and spot and place in their amazing, amazing lineup of literary events. I want to thank Books Inc. for being here, and I encourage you to support your local independent bookstore always, and especially tonight, and our authors on stage. Please buy lots of books, and don't forget to tip your bartenders. So tonight we have Team 20s through Team 70s, and we will go in chronological order. And everyone has written a true story, a true personal story on the theme plot twist, and it was up to them to interpret that in any way they saw fit. So our first reader tonight is Team 20s, Giovanna Lomanto. She is a Pushcart Prize nominated poet and photographer who has published 3 poetry collections. Team 20s, you guys, 3 poetry collections. 2 chapbooks and a limited edition art book. Her latest collection, Driver's Seat Echo, is available now. It's back there. She's a recent graduate of the MFA program at NYU, and her work has been supported by the SF MoMA, Litquake, KQED, and various reading series around the Bay Area. She currently serves as the co-publisher of the small press Game Over Books, and which is dedicated to bringing queer and BIPOC voices to the forefront of the art scene. Please join me in welcoming Giovanna, Team 20s.
Thank you so much to Generation Women and Samantha and Litquake for having me. I truly could not be more excited to represent really quickly who in the audience is in Team 20s. Wow. I was gonna make a joke about how I lost my voice screaming at the Charlie XCX concert, but it seems like that might be a specifically Team 20s joke. We'll see. So, as Samantha mentioned, I'm predominantly a poet, but I am currently working on a memoir. This is about borderline personality disorder. I feel myself disappear into fictions. Daniel laughed the last time I finished a book, the same way my mother used to rage at how quickly her $10 paperbacks were spent, gone, finished, as though they didn't live in my mind as ghosts of a person I had inhabited. We did the math, Daniel and I, and found that I can read around 700 words per minute while still summarizing the plot of the novel with a hazy recall. He'll ask me what the book is about, almost disbelieving, and I fall for it every time. I recall the book with pacifiers and mumbles of "I think" and "right" as he fact-checks online reviews. It's a joke now that I must lose something in the transference. It's true, I do lose something. I lose sight of myself for a moment. Reading has never been image-heavy, movie-in-your-mind magic for me ever, the way that the brain associates story with vision. For me, story is associated with blur, with the characters that rush across a page to formulate some sort of freakish thought with no form, no shape, all-encompassing and monstrous. Story is about swallowing, and swallowing whole. I read like I'm hungry, and if I'm full, I can't digest a sentence at all. I'll read for 2 days straight and ignore the rest of the week. Hots, colds, lukewarm temperatures passing by like seasons that melt into a year. The sun, the moon, the words. I'll watch movies and still see captions, the dialogue, a heavy film over the screen. The characters are everywhere. I am everywhere. I am just a character. Dreams and memories often weld together like iron bolts, so identical that you don't realize they're attached. 2 different screws, sold in a pack that accidentally forgot to separate the 2. My room in the psych ward was filled with books. I bought books, read books, wrote in books, filled journals, scrawled my name into the wall, signed notes to my friends, wrote poems for my nurses, devoured and made as though I, too, was made to devour. I was writing myself into a story, journaling every day and writing down every last thing that happened to my left pinky toe, as though it were such a massive part of me. One day, my therapist came in with a deck of tarot cards. We did our tarot cards in a 3-card poll. 1 symbol for your past, 1 symbol for your present, 1 symbol for your future. I fell in love with the practice. I begged him to pull my cards every shift. I photocopied the images and glued them into my journals to remember my fortunes. I'd never been into horoscopes or fortune cookies before. It had all been a blur for me, the short parables and tidbits of advice that didn't seem to crystallize day to day. But it was the chronology of tarot that mysticized me. I could easily align my life to something in my past, my present, and project onto the cards my deepest hopes for the future. I could come up with a beginning and a middle if I knew there would be an end. I could dream into the end. We learn about the hero's journey in middle school. Odysseus, one of the originators of the canon, blows himself into the ocean with a prophecy, a destiny to be devoured. He's given a mentor. He's set off on his mission. He has obstacles to overcome. He is sent into the underworld. He experiences doubt. He ascends to the surface. One final battle, one ending, a sudden calm, the ocean. Diagnosis after diagnosis, and I am straddling the barrier of genres, fiction or nonfiction, description or prophecy. Saskia asks me if I believe what the DSM tells me, that they don't know whether or not they're simply just calling them crazy. I have an answer ready. That since the diagnosis, I felt a part of my globular form settle more gently into an edge that it had already been tickling. In the months before a name, I was clawing out of myself, trying to find an answer as to why nothing seemed to fit this unshapely form, my body, my chemistry. When they give me a new word, I find its definition and realize I've known it all along. During the prescriptive test, they ask you questions that make you feel like you've been known this whole time, and it's because you have been known. They've known countless people like you. You are so old. You have lineage, ancient and built, and you are simply the latest, and you stand on the shoulders of the trees who have grown. Some have died, some have survived, and all have left you fertilizer for your own roots, tools for your diagnosis. You can take this. You always knew. I am made of novels sewn together, overlapped. I'm a hero's journey after a hero's journey after one hero's journey, and it's just the bottom of another hero's journey and the top of another. I'm just a cycle of manic and depressive, and when I'm not manic, I'm hypomanic, and when I'm not depressed, I'm stable, but being rocked within every emotion between the 2 ends of hospitalization. It's conflict, it's resolution, it's inciting incident that sparks down another downward spiral to the underworld where I'll hear a prophecy and only then meet a mentor, and it's afterlife, and it's horrible villain and the love of your life that you lose too soon, and then it's happy ending. And you go through more plot points with the final love of your life. And Jelena told me these words. She said, I remember because I love you, and I love you because I remember. And I will remember every last hero on my goddamn journey, and I will be a hero in your goddamn journey, even if you forget me, and even if you grow to hate me, and even if I grow to hate you. I will remember you because I loved you once, and I can't unlove someone in the way that I think other people can, or love lightly in the way other people can, or think differently like other people can. And if I can't, then maybe I'm not people. And if I'm not people, then maybe I'm just a fiction, and I'll also be a character in someone's novel, to be pathologized and miscategorized. But please know this, if you read about me, please know that I could not be buried with all my feelings, so I set them free. Here they are, poems and essays and photos, where I've written myself back, built my own narrative, taken the prognosis and given it time and a half, and another half, and another whole, because I am, because I will be, because I've always been here in all my honest glory. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Team 30s, tonight we have Eirinie Carson. She's a Black British writer living in California. She is a mother of 2 children, a member of the Writers' Grotto, and I have this printed in the largest font you wouldn't believe, and a contributor to Mother Magazine. Her work has also appeared in LitHub, Mortal Mag, Electric Literature, the Sonora Review, and others. She was the NEA Distinguished Fellow and at the Cambridge Center, and is a 2024 alum of the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. Carson contributes to her local paper, the Argus Courier, via a column, Eirinie Asks. Her first book, The Dead Are Gods, available back there, was critically acclaimed by Oprah, Nylon Magazine, Shondaland, and the Washington Post. It won a Zibby Award and was named one of Kirkus Review's best books of 2023. She is currently working on her first book of fiction, a maternal Gothic story that challenges the notion of the types of mothers we want to be versus the ones we actually are. Please join me in welcoming Eirinie Carson.
Wait, how do I make this bigger?
Let's see.
I promise it's not like a Russian doll version of Generation Women where we each get progressively bigger. And then you can like slot us together again at the end. I think it's just me and Jane who are freakishly tall. So my book is a memoir about the loss of my best friend who died almost exactly 6 years ago. Her name was Larissa. The piece I'm going to share today is something I wrote, which was an amalgamation of conversations I had with my 7-year-old named Luca. Okay. And I might cry too, but it's mostly because I'm on my period, so. Hello, baby. I'm okay. I'm just having a sad day because I'm thinking about your Auntie Larissa. You don't remember her because you didn't know her really, and that makes me sad too. You can't visit her now, baby, because Auntie Larissa is dead. And I miss her, and I wish it could be different so I wouldn't have to be sad so often. It's not your fault that Mama is sad. People get sad when they've lost something. Yes, like when you lose your stuffy, but with a person. Yes, everyone can die. Yes, even Mama. But hopefully I won't die for a long time. Oh, lovey, I'd miss you too. This is Auntie Larissa. See this photo? You met her once before when we flew to London on our way to France when you were a baby. She'd only ever seen photos and thought you were the most beautiful baby in the world, and she really, really wanted to see you in person. She thought you were the most beautiful baby in the world in person too. I made you spaghetti for dinner, and she began eating it right from the pot. I have this video, see? That's you in the high chair eating, and her right next to you, eating the leftovers and then laughing because she forgot it was for you, the baby, not her, the grown-up. I was very tired from having a baby, and I wanted to go to sleep, but I also wanted to see my friend. Because I was so tired, Auntie's visit was shorter than I wish it had been now. I wish it had been longer. Why? Because that was the last time I ever saw her in real life. That was the last time I ever hugged her. Yes, if I'd known it was going to be the last time, I would have hugged her more. I would have done a lot of things differently. Well, I would have made her stay the night. I would have snuggled up next to her and you and pulled the shades down against the sunlight because I was jet-lagged and sleeping too early. I would have woken up on California time and made you both breakfast. Eggs, probably. She didn't like the yolks of eggs. Yes, just like you. I would have made the eggs over hard, which means you flip the egg like a pancake and wait for the yolk to stop being runny. I don't know, that's just why she liked it. She ate very slowly, and sometimes I found this annoying, because it usually made us late for things, and I would get cross with her. Yes, I still get a bit annoyed for being late for things, you're right. I try not to, though. I think if I'd known that this would have been Auntie Larissa's last meal with me, I would have wanted it to take a long time. I think I would have watched her eat. Sometimes she would be eating and I would think she was finished and try to take the plate away to clean it, but she would want it saved just in case she wanted some later. What else would I have done? I probably would have cancelled our flight to France or moved it to a different day, or I would have made her come with us, maybe. Although traveling with Auntie Larissa, could be very frustrating. She sometimes needed simple things explained slowly to her, like which gate our plane was at, and how to read the big board with all the plane arrival times on them. I would have liked to have taken her to the beach one last time, the way you and I did on that trip. Or not the beach, it was a river, wasn't it? Under a large ancient bridge, you swam with your floaties on, and I smiled at you, floating on my back, and we bobbed like that for some time, weightless under the sun. I would have liked to have her with us. Maybe I would have liked to have had her come back to California and live in our house. I think it would have been fun to live with Auntie again. I say again because Auntie Larissa and Mama lived together a lot over the years, when we were naughty teenagers, and again when we were young adults, pretending to know how to be young adults. She would have been a fun live-in auntie. I think she would have come to your dance recitals. I think she would have taken you on walks, although not with a dog because she didn't really like dogs. I think she would have slipped you money when I wasn't looking. And when you became a sullen teen, I think she would have been the one you talked to, whispering behind closed doors, you making her laugh, that laugh of hers. I think I would have been equal parts jealous and equal parts proud. Proud that she loved you like I love you, jealous that you shared so much with her and not with me. I think that she would have been at your graduation, dressed in black with sunglasses on, drinking champagne brazenly, ignoring the looks of disapproval from other parents. I think when we came home from dropping you and your sister at college, she would have looped her arms through mine and your father's, sighed and said, well, just us three now. I think we would have been silly old ladies together, bragging about our joint pain and dressing in animal prints, racing our wheelchairs around grocery stores. I think I always would have made her egg over hard, just like she liked it. It's probably very easy to eat an egg over hard with your dentures out. I think growing old together would have been fun. Yes, that's true. She would have died then anyway. That's the twist. Even if she had lived, she would have died. I still would have liked to have more time with her. I don't know how much more, just more. Because you always want more time with the people you love. Because it's fun spending time in the presence of people who make you feel like your best self. Because it just is. Luca, you know I don't like this game. Because I find it really annoying, that's why. No one really knows what happens when people die. A lot of people have guesses. Well, for one, some people believe in heaven as a place, like somewhere you could travel to that is just the best place you could be, full of all the things you like, and you see all the people you lost and the pets you loved, and it's only good times there. Some people believe we come back as other people and get to live lives on Earth all over again, which makes me feel a little tired. Some people believe when we die, that's it. That's absolutely it. The end, nothing. Yes, it does sound boring, doesn't it? I find that one hard to believe, but I suppose anything's possible because no one's never come back to tell us all about it. Me, I don't know what I believe. It's very quiet without Auntie Larissa, so I know she's not here in the same way she used to be, but I feel her with me here often. Well, like when I tell you stories about her, and when you ask me questions about her, that feels like she's still here. Yes, I really like that feeling. Yes, I promise, even though I'm crying. My tears are nice tears, happy tears, even though they're a bit sad too. I think sometimes we can feel two different feelings at the same time. I suppose you're right. Auntie Larissa could live forever if we keep talking about her. And I might remember more stuff that I thought I'd forgotten. And maybe one day you'll tell people about her too. That's what legends are. Stories we tell for a long, long time. And they don't have to be 100% true, but they're stories that make us feel a certain way, that remind us of our ancestors. Do I have any other stories about Auntie Larissa? Oh, yes, I have lots. Why don't we make some eggs and I'll think of some more? Eggs over hard, yep, just like Auntie Larissa liked.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay. Now my nose is running. Okay, thank you. Team 40, Jenny True is Jenny Pritchett, and vice versa. Her screed on pregnancy, postpartumness, and parenthood, You Look Tired, an excruciatingly honest guide to new parenthood, came out during the pandemic. She does not recommend that. Then it was translated into Turkish and released in Turkey. She highly recommends that. She keeps a fabulous and funny blog and is a copy editor for The Guardian US. And I've invited her here tonight because she's a good writer and I want her to be my friend. Please welcome Jenny Pritchett.
We're friends. Gotta pull my underwear out of my butt before I start. How to become president of your kids' PTA. First, start smoking at the age of 15. Climb out of your bedroom window in Quincy, Illinois with a pack of Marlboro Lights left over from your whip-smart, snarky, chain-smoking best friend from when the two of you climbed out of her bedroom window and smoked cigarettes in a cemetery next door. Early drug use is key to becoming president of your kids' PTA, as is snarky and whip-smart best friends. Practice saying, "That is some bullshit." Make lots of friends. Start early. Wear a maroon beret and a bedazzled jeans jacket in junior high school. This will help. In the olden days of 1994, shriekingly insist that "that's so gay" sounds pretty mean. Shriekingly insisting is a key skill to making friends and bringing people together. Make friends at college. Explore new cultures. Join the crew team. Over the holidays, hook up with one of your teammates who's dating another one of your teammates because they're on a break, and spend the second half of the year confused about why the whole team seems to be pretty upset with you. Learn for the first time that someone actually hates you. It's important to have a thick skin if you're going to lead a PTA. Start thinking about your career. Get a work-study job at the Alumni Magazine and take every opportunity they give you to copy edit stories, write short pieces, and then write an opinion piece with your name and picture on it about how you tried to rush the Greek system your freshman year but came around to believing it's a pile of horse shit. Get cozy with the editor who's 30 years older than you but invested in your future. Then, after you move to San Francisco, write an angry letter to the editorial team you just worked with, shriekingly insisting that the headline on a story about a tuition hike, "Don't worry, your parents will pay for it," ignores the socioeconomic realities of the 40% of students, such as yourself, who receive financial aid. Angry letters are key to retaining connections. That editor may never respond to an email from you again, although you'll try periodically over the next 10 years. But other people's journey are not your business. Marry a guy you do ecstasy with the first time you meet him. Don't forget the drug use. Nobody wants someone with a clean past in a leadership position, especially when children are involved. Experiment with fancy drugs and big parties in warehouse spaces in the Tenderloin in West Oakland. Do a line of cocaine on the other side of a door from Danielle Steele, and shriekingly accost Tom Amiano in a BART station about the homeless situation in San Francisco, which is obviously all his fault. It's important to nurture relationships with people in power when you're the president of a PTA, because you never know when you'll need to call in a favor. Get divorced while you're in grad school. Remember that spiraling out of control is totally normal for this period of your life. Continue to gather experiences. When you're president of a PTA, it will be important to be able to relate to different kinds of people. Gather the anorexic experience. Gather the bulimic experience. You can laugh. Gather the experience of falling in love with an alcoholic jazz pianist who pokes you to keep you awake past 4 a.m. until you've listened to all 68 minutes of Keith Jarrett's Vienna concert. Gather the experience of dating a compulsive liar with a staph infection on his face. Finally, agree to go on a date with someone whose online profile makes you laugh. Meet him on a Sunday night at a restaurant near the Berkeley Marina. Make sure it doesn't go that well. As a PTA president, you're going to want to learn to manage expectations. Talk about how you're 39 and pretty sure you want to have a baby. After dinner, when this person you've never met before asks whether you'd like to see his boat in the pitch black, deserted Berkeley Marina, set your boundaries clearly and early. Say yes. Get in his van so he can drive you to your car and observe the coil of rope in the back seat. At your car, jump out and lock yourself in your car. Text him through the windows that although you just said the opposite, you cannot go to see his boat right now because of security concerns. As a leader, it's important to be clear and consistent. The next day, text him that you'd like to see him again. 3 months later, meet his daughter. 3 months after that, get pregnant. 4 months after that, get married and become a stepmother. In July of 2017, become a mom. Thank you. You might not think of yourself as PTA president material yet. Your tits are leaking, and you're shriekingly insistent that someone be awake with this new baby at all times so that if he suddenly stops breathing, one of you can call 911. But this new world is opening possibilities. You are no longer wasting time having hot sex with bisexual pastors, bisexual school administrators who make charming references to Virginia Woolf in their online profiles, mechanical engineering graduate students who are in Oakland for the weekend. You aren't doing any of these things or these people anymore. This baby, whose care is taking up a significant amount of your time, has cleared the way for you to become the person you were meant to be. Slowly, stop stalking your exes on social media. Trade in cocaine for Lexapro and Klonopin. Fall in love again, this time with a newborn, then an infant, then a toddler, then a grade schooler who rolls over in the middle of the night, barfs into your mouth, and whispers, "Mommy, you're a little stinky." Now here's the important part to becoming president of your kids' PTA. Enroll your child in public school in San Francisco. When your son is in kindergarten and you find out that there's lead in the drinking fountains and arsenic in the garden, shriekingly insist that the school district consider addressing this. Strategize with other parents on how to deal with a Zoom bomber who shows his dick during online story time, and SFBD pulling their guns during a traffic stop right on the other side of a cyclone fence from where children are playing. Ambush the superintendent with news crews. Wear your beret. Finally, when the district cuts your kids' school's budget by $1.5 million, at the same time, the superintendent, who was already making $362,589 a year, accepts a raise, feel the change. You're probably never going to do a bump of cocaine out of the filter of a Parliament light again. You're probably never going to pee in your next-door neighbor's driveway on Halloween because your bathroom's too far away. And you're probably never going to dance on top of a bar again unless it raises money for arts and culture programming. Your idea of a good time these days tends more toward public comment sessions than doing bong rips out of a pool with a cut-off 2-liter bottle. You're not afraid to embarrass yourself. You're not afraid to ask people for money. And you're not afraid to turn a Litquake event with Pulitzer Prize-winning Jane Smiley, I'm sorry, I should have warned you, into a bald ask for tax-deductible donations to Buena Vista Horace Mann K through A. San Francisco's first Spanish language immersion school and the only public school in the United States of America that hosts a homeless shelter on site 7 days a week. Sometimes a hot mess is just what 590 students in the Mission District of San Francisco, California, ages 5 through 14, need. Welcome to your new life, Presidenta. Come find me. I have a QR code. Thank you very much. And thank you, Litquake.
See? Don't you want to be friends? It's time for intermission already. So we're going to break for 15 minutes, and then the rest of us are going to read you some stories. Remember to tip your bartender. Books are available in the back, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. My name is Samantha Shea, and one of the reasons I do this is because the host of Generation Women always gets to read too, so now it's my turn. And I am Team 50s, a little bit older, but not yet mid-50s, a little bit older than our other Team 50s. Anyway, here we go. I think Timothée Chalamet might want me. He frequents my dreams, like sexually. He visits me in the bed I share with my husband of 24 years about once a week, and he has for months now. It's a very specific midlife crisis I'm having. This is perhaps not that unusual for the young and horny, but I am a tired 54-year-old mother of two, a good 13 years younger than Timmy's mother, thank God, but in the half your age plus 7 formula, he is still 5 years too young for me to mess about with. Alas. In case you've had better things to do in the last 10 years and don't know, Timothée Chalamet is a huge movie star. He's 28 now, but he could easily pass for 19. For reference, his vibe is somewhere between 1990s Johnny Depp's thinking woman's heartthrob and Brad Pitt's mass everywhereness. But he's skinnier and paler than either of them. He possesses a goofy charisma that inspires motherly and dirty thoughts in equal measure. I want to remind him to apply sunscreen and run my hands over his scrawny, hairless chest. But it's not exactly that I want to have sex with Timothy, although if I could get over myself and my C-section scar and my jiggly thighs and what I think might be liver spots, I think we could have a pretty good time together. My dreams, though, are about something less physical and more psychological. I want him to like me. And yes, I mean like me in that way. The dreams usually go something like this. We're hanging out in a small group of faceless people, and I am keyed into his every inflection, every upward flex of his plum-colored lips, trying to determine if he's into me. He gives me lots of ambiguous hints. He brushes my hand with his, flashes me a secret smile. He laughs at my jokes. His attentions are just obvious enough to get my hopes up and just cryptic enough to fill me with a painful mix of desire and doubt. It's almost exactly how I felt about Heath Haberlin in 9th grade. I know it's embarrassing. I'm mortified. At the present moment, Timothy is canoodling with a Kardashian supermodel. That data point alone should pretty much answer any questions I have on the matter of Timmy's and my romantic compatibility. He gravitates towards surgically molded branding tycoons, and I am different than that. The confusion-filled yearning I experience in my Timmy dream world is an emotional blueprint of how I spent most of my 20s, caught up in the tiresome loop of waiting to be liked. When I was young, I could tell from the beard burn on my chin and the fact that I woke up in his disgusting pilled flannel sheets that a guy liked me, or liked the way I looked and felt. But did he like me like me? I spent a good decade of my young life playing this game with what my friend Vita and I called lukewarms. Boys who would ignore you all night and then honor you with some lazy indication that they'd like to hook up with you at the end of the evening. How much we liked them was almost beside the point. I understand that waiting to be chosen is not currently in vogue. My college-age daughter is remarkably immune to such feelings, thank God. She does the choosing, thank you very much. But most of the time, she has better things to do, like friends and soccer and Flo Milli concerts. But for better or for worse, I was raised to center romantic love and sexual attractiveness. For worse, definitely for worse. I think it all started for me with that puppy doggish lunge he made toward the poor doomed village girl in Call Me By Your Name. That unbridled dopey sexuality lit up a part of my brain that remembers how young love felt, or more accurately, young lust. Yes, the endless feelings of having to be chosen were frustrating and unfair. They were such a waste of my time and energies. But they were also sort of delicious with their immense romantic possibilities and dramatic emotional ups and downs, neither of which are on the menu anymore. Freud claimed that dreams were a form of wish fulfillment, and he differentiated between the manifest content of a dream, which is the story we remember, and the latent content, which is the hidden psychological meaning. It doesn't take a psychiatrist to figure out what's going on with me. Timmy is simply a vehicle for my latent content. I'm having trouble stepping from one stage of life, youth, to another stage, not youth. My Timothée Chalamet dreams are me reaching back into the past as I am sucked, vortex-like, into a future rich with rewards like confidence, financial stability, and lifelong partnership, but bereft of making out in dark corners. It is widely accepted that middle-aged women feel invisible. This is not just the case of feeling sexually invisible, of course, but of feeling ignored and overlooked in myriad aspects of life, from conversation to hiring. No matter that as a group, Gen X women are foxy as fuck, that we invented, crowd pleaser, that we invented fuck yeah feminism, that we are capable and hilarious and way, way better at sex now than we were 30 years ago. The reality is that according to popular culture, my last fuckable day is behind me, and then some. In real life, my husband still wants to have sex with me as long as it's between the hours of 3 and 6 p.m. But my open market sex appeal is fading faster than I like to admit. I am, like actress, playwright, and Mandy Patinkin partner, Catherine Grody, philosophically in conflict with how I feel about this. I don't want to care, but I do. I do. My romantic choices are all worked out, a fact that is as comforting and satisfying as it is boring. My husband and I just celebrated the 25th anniversary of our first date by pedaling a cart down decommissioned train tracks like Old West cartoon characters. It was fun, but it wasn't exactly lighting up my cells with sexual longing. So it's in my dream world that my erotic wishes are fulfilled. There, I get to experience that exquisite feeling of sexual possibility. There, I am at a fancy parties, enmeshed in rituals of desire and seduction with a movie star. I'm ablaze with my own attractiveness and that feeling that anything can happen. and sweet baby-faced Timothy. He's cute as a button, but honestly, he could be anyone. Thank you. Thank you. All right, now on to the real Team 50s. Rachel Levin is a San Francisco journalist who has written for The New Yorker, The New York Times, Outside Eater, and lots of other places. She's the author of Look Big and Other Tips for Surviving Animal Encounters of All Kinds, and the co-author of 2 cookbooks, Eat Something and Steamed. Her first kids' book, Who Ate What, was published last spring. She's a good friend, and she walks faster than anyone I've ever met. Please welcome Rachel Levin.
It's hard to go after Samantha. She's so funny. I was laughing hysterically while she was plotting that essay. All right. Kids always have a favorite dinner, something they beg to eat every night. For my San Francisco kids, that is ordering burritos. When they want me to cook something, though, their number one request is what they used to call meat sauce pasta, and what they now call elk pasta, because I make it with elk. Well, with one elk in particular. An elk I killed at a wild, gorgeous reserve in New Mexico, owned by the billionaire Ted Turner. It's called Vermejo, and it's half the size of the Grand Canyon. And one winter, a group of women and I had it all to ourselves. This was not a vacation, but a full-on forest-to-table workshop aimed at women who know nothing whatsoever about hunting. Condé Nast paid for me to go, and my kids weren't happy about it, especially my then 11-year-old son, who considers himself a lover of creatures, and not only guides banana slugs to safety, but has a morning ritual of rescuing any ants he happens to find in our shower. Lots of people hunt, and have, of course, since the cave days. Although since the rise of the industrial meatpacking industry, not to mention DoorDash, let's be honest, not that many. While 80% of Americans say they approve of hunting, only 4% actually do it. In California, less than 1%. And that 1% did not include me. I grew up in Boston. My father owned video arcades. My mother cooked steakums. I even wrote a book about how to avoid encounters with wild animals, which is the opposite of stalking them. Self-sufficiency is not my thing. To me, people who hunt have always been other people, hardier people. In New Mexico, we are a dozen women from opposite sides of the country, geographically and culturally. One guest told me I should strategically stash guns around my house just in case of a home invasion. I relate more to my guides, Allie, a wildlife biologist, and Jen, who co-created this workshop to bridge the divide between those who hunt to eat and those who merely love to eat. I had a lot of concerns going into this trip, and guns were number one. We each get our own fancy hand-painted rifle for the week. Mine is splatter-painted pink and purple, like my favorite Esprit t-shirt from 6th grade. Apparently, the artist named it Sexy Spruce. It takes me 2 days to learn how to use it. And then the hunt is on. It's still dark when we pile into the truck and drive off into the wilderness. Jen makes me take off my bright orange Cotopaxi puffy coat and put on camo, which gives me an identity crisis. It's like Extreme Makeover, the Hunter edition. We stop and pull out our binoculars precisely 30 minutes before sunrise, because those are the rules. Honestly, I'd never realized hunting had rules. I thought hunting was what the movies made it out to be, trigger happy, beer guzzling. Turns out hunting is not like that at all. We scan the landscape, looking for the flick of a female ear. We see only bulls, bison, wild horses. It's just a beautiful day outdoors, like any beautiful day outdoors. No elk, thank God. Heading back to the lodge after dusk, empty-handed, I feel relieved. Then dawn, the next morning, the hunt is on. We're scanning, walking, waiting. 6 hours in, still no elk. Tomorrow's forecast calls for snow and 100-mile-per-hour winds. Hunting in that doesn't sound fun. I'm still not certain hunting itself is fun. Then, almost karmically, last light, last chance, we see them. Dozens of elk, cornered in a valley, backed by a hillside. Slinging my rifle over my shoulder like it's a laptop bag, I follow Allie and Jen into the grass. We're creeping in slow-mo. I'm sure the elk smell us. With 280-degree vision, they see us, too. I admit, camo comes in handy. We look like the trees. Inching ever closer, peering through sexy spruce, I see elk in HD. Some are head down, eating. Others mill aimlessly, elegantly, like they're bored at a garden party. Chirping fills the air. The birds. Those aren't birds, Allie mouths back. It's elk talking. They're not scared, she says, just aware. I, however, am terrified. There are so many elk, but only one standing apart. She's in my crosshairs, crystal clear, but my thoughts are not. Take the shot, Jen mouths. I can't, not because my hands are shaking. They're not shaking. I think about the randomness of death, of who dies from COVID or a car crash, at a concert, in a classroom. I remembered my son's last words as I walked out the door. Don't hurt any animals, he said. I won't, I promised. I didn't want to hurt an animal either. I let the elk drift through the grass like a cloud in the sky until she's surrounded, saved by the herd. Hunters don't call it killing, by the way. They call it harvesting, like it's corn or tomatoes. Obviously, these days, most of us don't need to hunt. We're too busy, sitting, slacking, cooking in our ivory kitchens. Soon enough, another perky-eared elk is on her own, standing broadside, 200 yards, or a quarter of a second away. I make myself think about all the worst ways this deer could die, a slow, sad death. At the jaws of a mountain lion, as roadkill. Whenever you're ready, whispers Jen. I'll never be ready. So I shut down and just do it. Shock, adrenaline, shame. I bury my face. Eventually, I force myself to look up. The herd has bolted at the sound of the gun, leaving my elk still standing alone. I'm horrified, confused. The second shot is harder because the elk has turned its body, because I don't want to shoot anything ever again. I squeeze the trigger. She drops. I sob like a sudden widow, like someone I don't want to be. We cross an icy creek, trudge through the tall grass, and find her on her side, heat rising from her fur. We put on headlamps. Allie offers me the knife. She asks me if I want to make the first incision. No, I snap. Instead, I grab her ankles, if elk have ankles, and lift her limbs, the world's longest legs, splaying them apart. I feel like an OBGYN to a giant. Field dressing is not my forte, but I do hold her heart. It's the size of a Mary's organic chicken. She has such a big heart, I say. Soon Jen pulls up with the truck. We winch the 600-pound carcass into the back and head to the lodge, late though not exactly starving for dinner. That night, showered, mired with remorse, I can't sleep. So I do what anyone does after harvesting her first elk. Send out the paperless post for my daughter's bat mitzvah. Later, back home in my Coal Valley comfort zone, I look the same, but I feel different, in that way you do after your internal world has shifted, like after you lose your virginity or someone you love, like after I gave birth. Hunting, I realize, doesn't just access meat in its rawest state, but our rawest state too. Did pushing a life out of my body make me a mother? Did taking a life make me a hunter? Honestly, did I ever want to do either of those things again? All I know is I have 2 kids and a chest freezer from Home Depot in my basement, brimming with at one point 130 pounds of tenderloin and roasts, rumps and grind. I haven't bought an ounce of beef from the grocery store in over a year. And when I'm in my slippers, stirring an elk bolognese, I feel something I've never felt after unloading $200 worth of groceries from Buy Right. Not sure what exactly. Maybe it's accomplished, content, proud, to know what it takes to be a meat eater, to be, just a mother, in San Francisco, making her family supper.
Thank you, Rach. I got to eat some of that elk. She was delicious. It's time for Team 60. Woo! Susan Ito is the author of the memoir I Would Meet You Anywhere, published by the Ohio State University Press, and a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. She co-edited the literary anthology A Ghost at Heart's Edge, Stories and Poems of Adoption. Her work has appeared in The Writer, Literary Mama, Catapult, Hyphen, the Bellevue Literary Review, Agni, Guernica, and elsewhere. She's been awarded residencies at the MacDowell Colony, the Mesa Refuge, Hedgebrook, and Blue Mountain Center. Her theatrical adaptation of Untold, Stories of Reproductive Stigma, was produced at Brava Theater. She teaches at Mills College campus of Northeastern University. My children did not get in there, but I do not blame her. Please welcome Susan Ito.
Thank you so much, Samantha. Thank you so much for curating this amazing, amazing group of women. I'm so honored to be here. This might be the first one. Samantha said it's okay if I don't write about being Team 60s. This is actually some excerpts from my memoir, which, and the part that I'm reading takes place when I was in my 20s. But it really strongly, I felt like, reflected the theme of plot twist. So you've all seen movie scenes of mother and child reunions, of course. Paul Simon's song is the soundtrack, and you get a slow motion shot of two people meeting joyfully in an airport or a street corner. They embrace and cry and live happily ever after. Well, my story of meeting my birth mother when I was 20 was a lot more convoluted than that. In one day, this meeting had more twists and turns than Lombard Street, and so here are some excerpts from my memoir about that day. The doors pinged open on the 12th floor, and I edged slowly down the hallway of the Holiday Inn. I paused in front of room 1211 and recited a little rhyme in my head. I would meet you in a house. I would meet you with a mouse. I would meet you in a room. I'd meet you at exactly noon. At 5 seconds to 12, I knocked twice, and the door opened. I half expected a blinding light and that I would step into an abyss, but on the other side was just an ordinary hotel room, and a Japanese woman my height stood in the doorway. She was my birth mother. I took in her ink-black hair, razor straight, with a sharp line of bangs above her eyebrows. No pin curls or foam rollers for her. No beauty parlor perms like my adoptive mother. My heart pinched thinking about that mother, oblivious, back in New Jersey. I blinked and stared again at the soft, rounded blip of her nose, her full lips. She wasn't smiling. Her eyes took me in. You must be Susan. Her voice sounded professional. Yes? She stepped aside to let me pass. I hope you don't mind meeting here. Oh no, not at all. A giggle bubbled up from my gut, and once again, my mind rhymed. I would meet you in a car. I would sit inside a jar. I would meet you anywhere. Let's sit by the window, she said. I awkwardly pushed chairs together, then apart, trying to arrange them so the sun wouldn't glare on either of our faces. I considered heaving myself against the glass, flying through shards of window into the swirling snow. Finally, we sat facing each other. I don't know what to say, I murmured. Neither do I. Her voice was cold. I shrank into my chair. She hates me. You know, this was all supposed to be confidential. Her voice stung. I fluttered my hands, not sure how to respond to this woman, my first mother, a mother I didn't remember at all. I handed her my adoption papers. From this day forward, the child, Mika Noguchi, shall be known as Susan Kiyo Ito. Then I passed her the blackened microfiche hospital records, charred-looking, her name ghostly, in white type. She repeated, this was all supposed to be secret. Then she murmured at the doctor's name on the hospital record. I remember him. He was kind. She seemed to soften. Then she snapped to, do your parents know that you've done this? My gut felt punched. Well, they know I've been looking, but I didn't tell them that we were meeting today. I scrambled through the envelope to find a photo of them in Miami, waist deep in the Atlantic Ocean, their wet, smiling faces. They look very nice. They are. She stared at a fixed point above my head. I turned to see a cheap framed print of a barn in the snow, a broken wheel leaning against the red outer wall. She spoke to the barn as if I were inside it. Listen, this happened. By this, she meant me. I happened. I was born. A long time ago, I made a decision and I had to stick by it and believe it and forget it. I don't mean to sound cruel, but you never crossed my mind. Not in 21 years. Oops. Sorry. Oh, there we go. I'm 20, not 21. I felt myself evaporating. I imagined myself trying to cross her mind, the wide, barren field of it, invisible. This was nothing what I had prepared for. I had tried to prepare for so many potential outcomes. The graveyard mother, the asylum mother, the mother who was really an aunt. But I had never tried this out, this particular kind of coldness, a woman who spoke to a barn instead of to my face. I had never crossed her mind. She didn't look at me. I watched her, though. Her fixation on the painting allowed me the freedom to stare at her. I took in her perfect chic haircut, an image fit for a magazine, her spotless black turtleneck, her sand-colored jacket with its clean, elegant lines. Finally, my birth mother drew her gaze down from the barn and let it rest on my face. I have to be honest. I'm angry. I feel betrayed. I worked so carefully to build a new life for myself, and now, her hands exploded silently in the air. She spent an extra moment gazing at one of the first photos my parents had taken of me, wrapped in a blanket in the floor well of their car. I wanted to say, do you remember this, baby? Did you see me before you left me? She looked at the 4-month-old infant. We breathed together, the hotel room air. The snow fell on the other side of the window. After a long silence, she said, I brought you in a taxi. What? I had to come back from where I was living. I had to come back when you were ready to leave the hospital, to bring you to the adoption agency in person. Her eyes went back to the barn painting. I held my breath. You look just like this, she murmured. She looked back at the photo. They gave me a bottle to take in the taxi. Her lips tightened, and I could see a small quiver in her chin. You drank it right up. I showed her my 3rd grade school photo. She exclaimed, "Oh, I love school pictures, classic, but my children never like the way they turn out." She laughed as if she had forgotten for a moment who she was talking to. Wait, my heart sparked. My children? She had children? More than one child? More than just me? I leaped. Do you have any pictures of them? Nothing recent. I don't care. Until this moment, I hadn't known that I even had half-siblings. She rummaged in her purse and unsnapped a leather wallet. Here. She slid a small photo out of its plastic sleeve and handed it to me. A young girl with thick, curly dark hair framing her face, a half-Asian face, cheeks and eyebrows like mine. She wore a T-shirt with letters embroidered across the chest. M-I-K-A, Mika. I blinked. What? An electric pain scissored through my chest. Why did she have a shirt with my name on it? Mika, that was my name. That was my official name, my original name. And here it was, on the body of a girl who looked somewhat like me, but who wasn't me. I started to cry. I tried to be quiet, but I couldn't. I put the photo face down and covered my face with my hands. I'm sorry, I snuffled. I'm sorry, this was just, I didn't expect this. I waved at the adoption papers. The child, Mika Noguchi, shall hereby be known as Susan Kiyo Ito. It was a name I'd picked. I really liked it. I knew it wasn't a name you would keep, so when she was born, she held up her hands and let them fall limply back to her lap. When she was born, you gave her my name because I had evaporated, because I had never crossed your mind. We waited for the elevator's doors to open, our gaze drifting through the lobby, and landed on a bright neon sign on the opposite corner, Haagen-Dazs. We sighed in unison, ice cream. Suddenly, we were two women who both wanted ice cream. We race-walked across the lobby, laughing. We stood in front of the ice cream counter. What do you like? Coffee chip. Her eyebrows shot up. That's my favorite. I laughed. I didn't want to make too much of a small thing. Liking the same ice cream, millions of people like coffee chip, right? But out of the dozens of choices, we had both zeroed in on the same one. Was there a gene for ice cream preference? We sat at a little table and licked our cones and shivered from the delicious cold. Isn't this the best brand? The way the chips are so flat, they just melt into the roof of your mouth. Yes, exactly. Our eyes met over the ice cream. We were in sync. I was shaking from bliss. Will you tell me about my father? I held my breath. Her face held a tender little mock-stern expression, like someone who was trying to discipline a child but was too amused. Well, he kept reminding me about you. He'd say things like, she's 4 years old this year. She's 11. He was the one who kept track. I clutched the pillow. He kept track? What? I wanted to meet this man who never let her forget about me. I want to meet him, and your husband too, and your children. A series of storm clouds passed through her expression. I don't think that's a good idea. She gathered up her things, tucked the pillows back underneath the bedspread, and put her coat over her arm. Our time was up. At the bus stop, I blurted out, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about, I don't know. The things were so hard, that it was such a shock. I know you weren't expecting it. She opened her mouth. The bus roared up to the sidewalk, a great beast with glowing eyes. It huffed and steamed beside us, and the door squealed open. I turned to her and made my mouth form a smile. Well, bye. Susan. It was the first time she had spoken my name since she had opened the hotel door. Her hand rested on my arm. She stepped forward and pulled me into a tight little embrace, her head on my shoulder. I could hear her voice through my hair. I wouldn't have missed this for anything in the world. The bus blasted its deep horn and we jumped apart. I climbed the bus steps sideways, not wanting to take my eyes away from her. She pulled her scarf up to cover her mouth and nose, and her eyes followed me to my seat. The bus swung away from the curb, and she was waving through the whirling flakes, standing in a cone of light under the street lamp. When the bus turned the corner, she was still there, waving.
Thank you, Susan. Our final reader tonight for Team 70s is Jane Smiley. She is the author of 33 works of fiction and nonfiction. She's won several awards, including a Pulitzer Prize for 1,000 Acres. I just want to say that I read 1,000 Acres when it first came out in 91, 92, something like that. And I have held it in my mind as one of my, top 5 favorite novels ever. And then all this time had passed, and last year I decided to read it again and see if it held up, and it does. It's such a good book. Anyway, she was born in St. Louis and lived for 25 years in Iowa, then she moved to California. She's best known for 1,000 Acres, Perestroika in Paris, 13 Ways of Looking at the Novel, Moo, and the Last 100 Years trilogy. Her most recent novel is Lucky, which was released in April of this year. Her most controversial article was Say It Ain't So, Huck, comparing Uncle Tom's Cabin to Huckleberry Finn, published in 1996 in Harper's Magazine. She also wrote a book about the invention of the computer. She is an avid horse rider and hiker, and she lives in the Carmel Valley. Please join me in welcoming Jane Smiley.
Can you hear me now? Maybe.
Lift it from here.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good. Okay, I'll put this here. Well, thank you all for coming. This is such a pleasure, and I really enjoyed every single reading that my fellow authors did. So this is a little essay I would call Plot Twist. But it's not about my books or a story in any of my books. It's autobiographical. We wanted to get out of Iowa, and now we had the money. He had the guitars, and I had the horse. So we looked around California for a place where both could find a home, one in a barn and the other on a stage. The spot we chose seemed like paradise. There was daycare nearby for our 4-year-old son, 2-stall stable in our huge backyard, and beautiful spots to stare at everywhere. My favorite pleasure was getting on my horse, Mr. T, and riding him down the street we lived on. I was 47. This was my 3rd marriage. I believed that it would last forever, like my husband's parents' marriage, like my grandparents' marriage. And then he went to the dentist, and a month or so later, he dropped me. When my 2 previous marriages ended, the partings were amicable, but this one wasn't. And because it was California, he had a claim on our money, which meant that I had to move out of what I considered my dream house. He was good about sharing our son, though. And one day, when our son was with him, I headed east on Carmel Valley Road, very winding. I got to a spot where the drop on either side of the road was terrifically steep. I thought that if I just parked the car and started walking down the slope and kept walking, I could commit suicide because I would never get back up the slope to the road and never be found. I was so tempted that I stopped the car. I didn't do it. The hard part was turning around to go back to town, but turning around led me to the plot twist. My second horse, bought from a famous stable on the East Coast, who turned out to be unsound, badly treated, and maybe permanently unrideable. The small barn on my dream property had 2 stalls, which was fine until the new horse, Yuki, had to be on stall rest. For him to endure this, the barn needed a cross breeze, 2 more windows. I felt like everything was falling apart. And it wasn't only me. The president I had voted for and respected was cheating on his wife, too. I had a strong feeling that the center would not hold, either personally or politically. And whatever it was I had to deal with, I would have to do it alone. Some friends sent me a man to install the windows. He was handsome and skilled, and I was immediately interested. But he was already involved with someone else, and he wasn't my type. not a reader, 7 years older than I was, and he did not know who in the world Monica Lewinsky was. But there was a sign that maybe something would work. When the builder was walking around the 2 stalls and the 2 paddocks, Mr. T followed him closely, watching him, looking into his toolbox, and snuffling the back of his neck, clearly attracted to this man in a way he had never been attracted to my ex. In the meantime, I was investigating the idea of writing a novel about horse racing, something I knew nothing about other than twice going to the local racetrack when I was growing up in St. Louis. The prompt was Mr. T. I noticed the tattoo under his upper lip and found a way to look him up. 52 races in Germany, France, New York, LA, $167,000 in winnings, and sound from top to bottom. He was so interesting, there had to be a novel. It turned out that the man who was doing the work had grown up with horses, and I asked him if I might read some of the manuscript to him. He said yes, and I invited him for dinner. And that was how I wooed him. Food, amusing incidents in the novel, asking for advice, taking walks, jokes. Bit by bit, he changed his mind about getting together. The thing I discovered that was the plot twist was that I had as much to learn from him as he had to learn from me. And the learning turned out to be the biggest pleasure. When I was first starting out my career, I decided I would follow William Shakespeare's model and write a novel in 3 genres: tragedy, comedy, romance, and add to that the Norse genre, epic. So I had written 1,000 Acres, Moo, The All-True Travels and Adventures of Liddy Newton, and The Greenlanders. Inspired by those, I put 6 horse characters in horse heaven: a tragic horse, a comic horse, a romantic horse, an epic horse, plus a realistic horse and a surrealistic horse. In order to lure Jack, I put in more sex. He made suggestions that were always astute, and then he told me that when he was in elementary school, there was a dunce cap with his name on it, and if he asked too many questions, his teacher would sit him on a stool facing the wall with the dunce cap on his head. He said he was an idiot. I said he was dyslexic. It was the teacher who was the idiot. He got more interested in books. Simultaneously, I was learning a lot from him about keeping calm and carrying on, about child rearing. He was the only principal parent of his 2, and about maintenance, not only of cars and buildings. Maybe he was the first man I'd known who was wise. I felt connected to him in a way I'd never felt about anyone before. But then, after Horse Heaven, I ran out of ideas. I'd accomplished my goal, set in grad school, and now what? He fixed that too. He had his own torments, and one of them was about a man he knew when he was a realtor in Pennsylvania, who had cheated him out of everything he owned. I said, we can make a novel out of that. Organize everything that happened, come to understand it, and then you can put it out of your mind. I wrote Good Faith, and guess what? It worked. The last 25 years of my life have been the ones I never expected, the ones where my interests expanded and my sense of connection to all kinds of things that hadn't interested me before, like spirituality and making repairs, grew. A few years ago, I said to the husband who dumped me right in front of Jack, That was the best thing that ever happened to me. All three of us laughed. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you to these 6 amazing writers for sharing their work with us tonight. Thank you for coming. Books are in the back. I think the bar is still open. Good night.